welcome to this episode of Three Questions. I'm Greg Michlig, President and CEO at CUInsight.com, and it's great to be joined by Jack Smith, CEO of Pure IT. Thanks for being here, Jack.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Greg.
Appreciate you joining us. I know we're going to talk a little bit about leadership, strategy, and alignment. So let's jump into the three questions.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, what's the biggest strategic challenge facing credit unions right now?
Wow, that's a very loaded question and a big question. I think first and foremost, I think they have a lot of things that are on the horizon for them that they need to do. But I think from a strategy perspective, I think it really is understanding how to leverage technology and all the fintechs to provide better service to their members and doing that in a way that they haven't been able to do in the past. And I say that because I feel like a lot of credit unions, while phenomenal on the financial side, really great at helping their members, phenomenal at connecting with their communities and their members, have really struggled with the technology side. And it's not their fault. A lot of it really has to do with how the cores, and I don't mean that against the cores, but just how antiquated a lot of the cores are, how they integrate with other technology, and how credit unions struggle sometimes with having the talent to execute on some of those bigger lifts as a technology. So really getting your strategy aligned, understanding how do you make the core not drive your strategy? Because I feel like a lot of credit unions let the core drive their strategy. And I'll give you a great example. If I've heard this once, I've heard it literally over 1 million times. Well, we never want to do a core conversion again. Well, that just seems horrible to me, that you feel hostage, that you're held. So that means that your strategy then is tied to that decision because you can't execute on all these other things based on that one decision, right? And so I feel like allowing and teaching and bringing some of that enterprise knowledge. Now we're a CUSO, but we worked 10 years ago before we were a CUSO, we worked in the enterprise space, and bringing that freedom and knowledge where you give an institution or an organization back their strategy so that they own all of their strategy and not just pieces of it because they're hamstrung by things they can't control is extremely important. So allowing them the freedom to not be what I call core strung is something that we need to help credit unions execute on so that they can take back their strategy and execute fully on better serving their members. Because what do credit unions care about? Let's just say it. They only care about really one thing, and it's not profits. It's people. It's people over profits. That's credit unions, right? It's serving their member. But if there's limitations in your ability to do that from a technology perspective, and banks and all of these other entrants in the markets like Amazon, like Apple, that aren't even banks, start competing with you for that member, that client, then that becomes a problem. And credit unions need to be able to execute and give those members what they need when they need it. So to me, that is the biggest strategy pitfall, is getting technology aligned with their financial strategy and having control of that strategy. So getting back control of strategy would be what I would say is the biggest thing.
I've heard it 1 million times too. You're right. I mean, that core strung word that you brought forward is so accurate. And we talked a little bit when we were at the NACUSO conference. You mentioned that you're a CUSO, and we had an opportunity to chat there. And in that environment or otherwise, how can credit unions unify siloed teams or separate organizations into one strategy?
I think it's interesting to me. So I'm going to go back a little bit. One of the things that we saw when we first started Pure IT and started helping credit unions, and I want to give Becky Reed a shout out because she was really, at the time, she was the COO, soon to be CEO of Lone Star Credit Union. And she's the one who convinced me and one of two of my business partners that there was a lot that credit unions needed to take back control of their technology strategy stacks, because that was a big weakness within the space. And because she had a passion for credit unions and sold us on what the movement was about, that was huge. So to get back to what you're asking me though is, so the biggest hole that we saw, I hate picking on the cores because it's not all their fault. It's just was that there was no integration. There were no APIs, and the APIs that were there was a struggle. And so to your point, how do you integrate? Like if you're in the M&A right now and you're a credit union, your biggest longest tent in the pole and cost perspective and an M&A perspective is if the core is not the same as your core, that's your biggest cost. It's not, it's the so you're going to run silo for a while until you get those cores integrated. So for me and two of my other business partners, it was, well, how do we, there's got to be middleware, because in the corporate, in the enterprise space, that had been solved through middleware and through figuring out how to integrate all these technologies to whatever your ERP system might be or whatever your main technology was on the back end from a software perspective. And so um, it took us a while. We could not find anyone that was really doing it. And the things that you see like MuleSoft that are being done in the enterprise space, yes, about maybe 2% of credit unions could use that because they have the IT teams and the organizational money to do that. So like a Navy Federal and maybe a few others could really take that on. But for most credit unions, they were not going to be able to afford that. They were not going to be able to afford, nor would they have the ability to manage it long term. And so we kept looking for how do you solve that problem? Because that's the problem. It's how do you integrate quickly without member loss, without all these things. And so for me, it's really finding middleware for credit unions. And so we actually at Pure IT spun off another company uh, 4 years ago to solve that problem called Janesy. We found a small organization that had solved this problem as a one-off for some call center software, and it had actually been built to do bank holding of multiple cores on the back end to do bank holding companies. And we bought the IP, we put it in the cloud, we created a platform. And as we were adding credit unions and fintechs to it to connect them, because that was the vision, was how do we make this easy? How do we get all the cores integrated into it? It got bought. So Pure IT does not own that anymore. So it got bought, but it is now part of a bigger company called Connective. And I have no equity in Connective. I'm not a part of that. But I will tell you, their solution to me is elegant because what it solves is not the heavy lift part of the API pieces with your core. And so looking at how you take something like that and integrate it so that you can bring and consolidate people and organizations together quicker and faster without that heavy lift and cost. And then how do you integrate credit unions to where, and I'm about to say something that might scare some people, but if a core really is a database, which is what a core really is, how do you extract it down to the database level and put something on top that does more customer management, all the functions within a credit union more elegantly and maybe in one pane of glass so that you're not jumping, so your users aren't operationally having to jump from software to software all day long. So one of the biggest things we see when we do our consulting assessments with credit unions is the inefficiency of the people that are working there, not because they're bad people or their processes are even sometimes okay or good. It's that when you have to jump from one piece of software to another piece of software to another piece of software to do your job, that's laborious. And it actually adds hours to your job. If you could automate or make that all one thing that you did once and it went where you needed it to go, that's way more efficient. And that means your people are now freed up to actually better serve your members and better serve the institution. So anyway, I'll shut up. But that is the key problem in credit unions to me, operationally, organizationally, and technology wise, is how do you get to that? And that's the problem we're trying to help solve.
Yeah, and it all ties in that right at the end there, you're talking about efficiency and how can the credit union be more efficient to be able to serve the members. I mean, that's, as you said earlier, people, that's the business of credit unions, right? So to be able to serve your membership, I know you've been around the industry for a while. I've been around, for quite some time, seen a lot of things. So, in your
Yeah, we both have
time,
some gray hair. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. So, I mean, what's the biggest lesson you've learned after 10 years in the credit union industry?
That it actually has probably the best people of any industry I've ever worked with in my entire life. That they genuinely, truly, authentically, whatever word you want to choose that's out there, care. They care about what they do, how they do it, who they do it for. I've been honored to serve on a credit union board for 10 years. Um, I will tell you that it was really cool for me because I remember, and I don't, I'm not even going to say, I want to be as careful as I can with this, but like we had a member that was struggling with some payments on something. And, a lot of, let's just say, for profit or more banking or whatever you want to call it would be very aggressive in trying to figure out, it wouldn't be about that person, right? But this person had been a member at the credit union for, I don't know, 30 years and never had a problem. And so we actually took the time to try to figure out what the problem was. And we actually helped that member, right? And took care of, and we got it back on track. Everything was fine. Uh, but that's a unique thing in credit unions. It's still about the relationship. It's still about the people. It's still about knowing that person. And so even though I'm a tech company, that is the thing that makes me like, I will never not work in this space for the rest of my life. I mean, I have nothing against for profit, by the way. I don't want to even act like I do. That's not a thing for me. But coming and working with the people here and being a part of this movement, I'll never want to do anything else for the rest of my life. I found my nirvana, my heaven, on this earth, and it's because of the people. I mean, it's flat out, it's the people that I've met and built relationships with over the last 10 years. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I was fortunate to stumble into the industry not long after college, so it's really the only space that I've known. But there's a reason why I haven't left it in over 30 years, and it is the people. And like you said, for profit, not for profit, those are business models. There are people in our industry that are in for-profit companies that are still just great people because it's about the philosophy. It's about serving
it's
credit.
about serving other people, and it's about serving. You just nailed it. I think
Yeah.
we all in our lives look for something that we can grab hold on. Like I remember when I worked for the first company out of college, to your point, and then it was awesome because there was something bigger than us that we felt like we were doing as an organization. And I remember and maybe that was me being a naive kid right out of school, but I grabbed a hold of that, right? And I felt that, and it made me really care about what I did. And it's the same thing here. It's the same exact thing. It's bigger than us, and it's service oriented, and it makes me feel good to be a part of it. It just makes me feel, which is a selfish thing, but yeah, I feel it makes me feel better to be a part of it. And I just can't say enough great things about the industry and the people that are in it. I just can't.
I'm right there with you, and I appreciate you sharing those sentiments. Thank you, Jack. It's been great to talk with you. Thanks for taking the time to join me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to all who tuned in for this 3 questions video interview. We'll see you next time.